Hey everybody, welcome back to the Senators Roundtable. I'm your host Jacob Billington, joined by my fantastic co-hosts Paul Quinney and Dayton Reimer. How you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Jacob. Here in sunny Ottawa, probably better than you're doing out there on the East Coast, buried up over your armpits in snow, right?
Yeah. There's too much snow. I don't like it. I like the snow, but this is too much.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, hang in there.
We're
Yeah,
just getting freezing rain in Saskatoon, so I think I'd take the snow.
not this much. Well, we're on day 3 of or school being canceled, and the snow started on Friday.
It's a lot. I'd
That's a
still take
lot.
it over freezing rain.
Yeah, I don't know. But actually, Dayton, we're going to talk about something that you wrote for the hockeywriters.com, and it was a fantastic article. And I just want to run through your thoughts on the Senators that could be possibly going to the Olympics now that it's confirmed for 2026. Okay, so yes, we have the World Championship, or sorry, the Four Nations tournament next year. That's going to be pretty fun. I'm glad that they're not calling it a World Championship. I'm glad that it's something else. I wish there was more involvement, but because we have Olympic participation confirmed, I think it's okay that we're doing the Four Nations just to kind of at least get some sort of best on best sometime soon. Um, but yeah, let's kind of dive right into what you think, who you think might make the Olympic rosters for their nations. I have a list of players here, and I want you to tell me if you think that they are going to make their respective teams. Okay, so let's just start with a fairly easy one. Let's start with Brady Kachuk. What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Paul.
Well, I was looking at that, and I mean, the United States, that's a really tough team to crack. They're
Yep.
they're like Canada. They could probably put together a couple of teams that could win that tournament.
Yep.
So to Chuck, he's got to be in the running, but
Yep.
offensively, he's not near the top of the pack among American players. But that said, it's 2 years away, and he's going to be that much better in 2 years. So I'd have to say, yeah, he's in the running. But would I put money on it? No, too difficult to bet.
Yeah. There's a lot of really good players. Like if you just look at the wingers, like you got Kyle Connor, Jason Robertson, his brother Matthew Tkachuk. Like it's so star-studded. I'm sure I'm missing obvious names or whatever, but like there's so many fantastic wingers on that team. It's going to be tough to crack, even if you are one of the NHL's best wingers. It's just the Americans put in a lot of good wingers and a lot of good people at every position. Dayton, what do you think? Does Brady Tkachuk crack the roster?
Now, just remind me before I make a fatal error. What wing does Kachuk play?
Left, but
He's a
if
left.
he's left, but I'm in the Olympics, it's kind of just the best players go.
That's fair. Yeah. I mean, if we
Yeah.
do consider wingers,
Yeah.
um, Brady has to compete with Brock Besser, Matthew Tkachuk, Jason Robertson. I think all of those three guys are pretty much locks.
Yeah. Alex
Clayton
DeBrincat.
Keller. Sorry?
Alex DeBrincat.
Yes, probably.
Yeah.
Clayton Keller, most likely.
Yeah.
Um, but after that, one of the best names, like young and up and coming, would be Brady Tkachuk,
Yeah.
along with Cole Caulfield and Troy Terry.
Yeah.
So I think it's basically a guarantee that he makes the team. I couldn't see a world where they would leave him off and take someone else. Yeah.
I agree. I think I would put money on it. I would say that it's pretty much a lock because you want to have the brothers, right? He's good enough to make the team on his own, but if it's like either this guy or this guy, Brady Tkachuk brings that like a good presence that you might want on your fourth line at the Olympics, right? It's weird to think of Brady Tkachuk as a fourth liner, but like at the Olympics, that's you'd love to have his physicality and his grit and his fighting and whatever, like all that tough play style that he has. You'd love to have that on your team, and his brothers on the team. You want the brothers on the team.
Yeah. And having him would hopefully slow down some of the faster teams that they'll likely be up against. Not that he's any slouch on speed, but his style is
Yeah,
supposed to shorten that game, right?
yeah,
And so having someone like that would be really nice. Now you throw in someone like Matt Boldy, who is a fantastic player,
yeah,
that you're not quite sure maybe how that goes. And there's a few other guys who I'm just looking at the current scores. for the Americans. Some really, really good names are under Brady Tkachuk.
Yeah.
But I think out of anyone on the Senators roster right now, except maybe a couple others that we'll get to, he is the most likely to make the team for his own nation.
Yeah, I agree. We'll go next, sticking with the United States. Let's go Jake Sanderson. What do you think, Dayton?
So I think he's also likely to make the team. I wouldn't be as confident though, because the Americans do have some fantastic young defensemen.
Yep.
And 12 guys will make it at least for the forwards.
Yeah.
Or no, sorry, 16, 4 lines.
Yeah.
No. Oh my goodness. It's 12. 12 is right.
I think they'll have 13 because they have the extra. And
yes.
depending on the way the Olympics will work, they might have an extra 2 guys outside.
Tried to prevent screwing up earlier, did it anyways. With basic math. Only 6 defensemen, maybe 7, get to make the Olympic team.
Yeah.
And you've got Quinn Hughes, you've got Adam Fox, you've probably got Luke Hughes.
Yeah.
I think Charlie McAvoy is still going to be relevant at that time.
Yep.
Brock Faber, who is fantastic. John Carlson, maybe, but he'll be considered. Brady Shea. Is that already 6? Like, there's a lot.
That's already 7. And you forgot Jacob Slavin. Like, there's Jacob so many guys that Zach Werenski.
Now, Jake Sanderson is great, and he's only going to keep getting better.
Yeah.
But I think he's got a shot.
Yeah.
It's just not a guarantee like Brady.
Yeah. I would personally look at Jake Sanderson more for the 2030 Olympics, just because you have some of these veteran guys, and he's one of the younger guys that we're talking about for making the team. So, like, once Adam Fox starts getting, by 2030, he'll be in his mid-30s, early 30s. Same with, like, Zach Werenski and all that. And Jake Sanderson's going to be, what? I don't know. Math on the top of my head isn't easy. But
you're telling me.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he's 21, so he'll be about 26, 27, 28, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So like right in the prime of his career. I think that's a prime time for Jake Sanderson to make the Olympics. I don't think that he makes it in 2 years. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you. I think you'd have to allow that he's got a shot at it. The interesting thing is you guys were mentioning scoring, and I came across a piece in the Hockey Writers earlier today. And Sanderson, while he's got a reputation here in Ottawa of being, an offensive threat, among American defensemen, he's ranks 10th in terms of scoring in the league. And
really?
Yeah, and to Chuck, he ranks 16th among American defensemen or forwards in the NHL. So all that to say, the U.S. team is going to be really tough to crack. Here you've got 2 top-notch players that are on the bubble.
Yeah. Well, and you look in goaltending, I don't think anybody. Well, Russia will have the best goaltending, assuming they compete. But outside of that, like it's easily going to be the United States being number 1 and 2 with Russia. Like you got Jake Ottinger, Connor Hellebuck, and who do you want to throw in there? Tristan Jarry. Like there's 10 guys that could be that third guy. But yeah, I think the U.S. takes the next Olympics. That hurts to say as a Canadian, but I think that the U.S. does take 2026 Olympics for hockey. What was that?
Well, I was just going to say, to put that U.S. team in perspective, I mean, if you're in Ottawa, right, you've got a lot of time for Norris, or some of us do, and Pinto, and as good as they may be, they've got to compete against guys like Austin Matthews and Jack Hughes, Jake Eichel, Dylan Larkin, just to name 4 centermen, and that is a team with a lot of depth.
Yeah, they're a very good team. But let's move on to Canada. And we got 2 defensemen to talk about. Let's just kind of put them out there together and talk about them as a pair. So I guess this can kind of be, who do you think is the better defenseman in 2 years? And do you think that either of these guys are good enough to make the Olympic roster? And that's going to be Jacob Chychrun and Thomas Chabot. We'll start with you, Paul.
The better of the 2 in 2 years, I'm going to go with Chychrun. And I don't think either one of them is got what it takes to make Team Canada. Shabbat, as good as he is and as much as he liked in some quarters in Ottawa, he's just not an Olympic caliber defenseman, at
Yeah.
least by Team Canada standards. Chychrun, maybe he could be a long shot. I mean, he's a defensively or offensively oriented defenseman. Maybe they may decide they need that, but even so, he ranks 12th among Canadian blue liners in terms of points production. So, long shot might happen if there are injuries, but I wouldn't put money on it.
Yeah, it's tough. There's a lot of really good defensemen that are going to be contending for a spot. Just off the top of my head, I have like Dougie Hamilton. Obviously, Shabbat and Chychrun will be challenging for a spot. Devon Taves. You've got Josh Morrissey. Like those are going to be your top guys, right? As of right now, Cale Makar is not able to attend, so that won't be talked about as much until things get cleared up with that whole situation that we're not going to get into here. But as of right now, Cale Makar can't play in any Hockey Canada, can't represent the team. But there's still so many guys, I think, ahead of Shabbat and Chychrun. I think Chychrun has a better shot than Shabbat, but I don't think that either of them make it. Like, you got Alex Pietrangelo, who is going to be that kind of steady Eddie third pair defenseman on that team. He's getting up there in age, but he's somebody that you want on the team. He's got the experience. What do you think, Dayton? Do either of them crack the lineup?
See, in the article, I did write that they have a chance, and I think both of them do. I think, however, Shabbat has the better chance because he has that more well-rounded game. The only problem is he hasn't been healthy this year, and so we haven't seen it. We've just got those little bits, and Chychrun's having a great season. He's on pace to set career highs this season, I believe. Almost get to that plateau, if not cross it.
Yeah.
But we've also seen that Chychrun has a lot of defensive inconsistencies.
Yes.
And I know we've talked a couple of times about his giveaway numbers, which just keep getting worse. Now, the Canadian defensive squad is also going to be hard to break into. You mentioned Josh Morrissey, Noah Dobson, Evan Bouchard. Both guys are big point producers this year, and I think they'll still be considered. Morgan Riley, he'll be not too old, I don't think.
I'm taking Morgan Riley over Shabbat or Chychrun.
Oh, for sure. I just don't think that they're out of the competition, especially because Shabbat should be continuing to get better. I think he'll be 29 or 27.
He's 27 now, so he'll be
27 now. Okay. So it's Chychrun who'll be 25. He'll just have those 2 extra years to get his feet under him. And if the Senators go where we think they will, where we hope they will, I think he has a much better shot. Because we can all remember when he was the world junior hero, right? He knows how to perform on an international ice and with some of the best players of his own age group.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can count him out. And Chychrun hasn't been considered for anything else for Hockey Canada. And I wonder if there is some sort of bias. You're only going to ignore him for so long. And if he continues to get better, I just wonder if this year might be a blip because he is very injury prone.
Yeah, that's fair. And that's another really good point that not Olympic related, but Chychrun has been really healthy this year. And that's fantastic to see. So knock on wood that I didn't jinx that. But yeah, things look really good for Chychrun right now. Let's move on to 2 very easy answers, I think. Tim Stützle, does he make the German Olympic team?
Yes, obviously.
Yeah. There's no debate about that.
No, he's one of the greatest German players to ever play the game.
Yeah.
And he could become much better than Draisaitl. We have yet to see. He's still incredibly young, but both of them are going to be on the team along with JJ Peterka and Lucas Reichel. Yeah. There's no question about that. Mort Seider, he will be there. The Germans are going to have a sneaky, scary team.
Yeah. There's a lot of... They won't have the depth, but top end, they can compete with anybody, right? Like, if you're playing top six, and then the top pairing on defense, like that can compete with pretty much any team. Like obviously they're not going to be the favorites, but like if you're just looking at that top end of the lineup, they're up there, right? Like you named some pretty good names there, Dayton. Paul, what do you think? Tim Stützle making the German roster?
Yeah, I'm not going to take you guys on that one. I'm with you.
Yeah.
He's a lock.
Yeah. And another lock is Mads Søgaard in Denmark. Not really much has to be said about that. He is one of two Danish goaltenders in the NHL. Freddie Andersen, he's going to be the starter on that team, provided he stays healthy. There's a chance that Mads Søgaard is the starting goaltender on the Danish team. And now they might not all play. Like Denmark might not be. I don't know the teams that are already confirmed for the Olympics. I don't know if Denmark is in there. I know there's a couple qualifying teams that have to get in there, but I believe Denmark is one of the teams that are already locked in. And if they are, then I don't know. Freddie Andersen's had some blood clotting issues this year. Mads Søgaard might take the starting role.
Well, and with Freddie, by the time 2026 rolls around, he's going to be 36.
Yeah.
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 So
speaking of who is qualified for the Olympics, Denmark has not qualified yet.
No? Okay.
Currently, there's the top 8. Canada, Finland, Russia, United States, Germany, Sweden, Czechia, and Switzerland.
Yeah.
So those ones are going.
Yeah. Germany's not qualified yet.
Germany is. I did list them.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
They are ranked 6th or 5th.
Okay.
Actually ahead of the Swedish team based on how points work. As far as I can recall.
Yeah.
So that leaves 3 spots because, of course, host Italy takes on one of them. And those are set for this summer in Slovakia, Latvia, and Denmark. And it has yet, I think, to be, let me see here. Yes. So the 3 host nations could end up, but Denmark has to beat Norway and Slovenia and one other team to get there. So it's not going to be easy, but I think they have a good shot.
So with respect to Italy, do you think they'd be open to selling their spot? With all due respect to Phil Esposito, I mean, the Italians.
The Italians have had a sneaky good program for a longer history than you might think. They're always kind of just on the edge of being one of the top ones.
Really?
Yeah, no, they've been competing for at least their junior teams. I looked at all their junior teams and made a very nerdy spreadsheet.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Where we got here? Trying to find it. So Italy has, at least for their junior program, been in since the 1979 tournament. So the 3rd official tournament.
All right.
Go ahead.
I take back my snide remarks on Team Italy.
Yeah. The lowest they've ever been is 23rd. Which, I mean, it's lower.
Yeah.
But they're in that range of like Denmark and Norway and Austria.
Yeah.
And they have played against them and beaten them at times.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
Let's move up a bit north. The Olympic athletes of Russia. Not Team Russia, but the Olympic athletes that come from that country. Assuming that they're going to be participating, because OAR has participated for the last few years, assuming nothing big changes, do we think that Vlad Tarasenko makes the lineup? He's going to be 35 at the time. Dayton, do you think that he cracks that top 12?
I think he does. Russians, at least in previous tournaments, have really liked their older players.
Yeah.
They like that experience. They like the guys who can put it in the net and have done for a long time. And so I think he will be strongly considered, maybe not in a prominent role anymore, almost definitely not in a prominent role. But yeah, he should be there. And as of the latest reports, the Russians should be at the 2026 Olympics.
Yeah.
That has been at least confirmed by the IOC right now.
Yeah. I'm just looking now. I just brought up a couple projections of the roster. Um, yeah, I think Tarasenko makes it. I mean, for right wings, if you're just looking positionally, you got Kucherov, Matvey Michkov, Vlad Tarasenko, and Pavel Buchnevich. Tarasenko is definitely going to be one of them. And if you look at the left wing, it's quite a bit deeper. You got Kaprizov, Svechnikov, Panarin, and Danil Yurov, who is a phenomenal prospect right now for the Minnesota Wild. So yeah, I think that there's a good chance that Russia makes it, or that Tarasenko makes it for Russia. Paul, what do you think?
I agree. The biggest question though is, will he be an Ottawa Senator in 2026?
That's fair. Fair question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't put any money on that, but
Yeah.
that's another topic. I don't want to digress.
On the back end, the last one we're going to talk about, Artem Zub. Russia kind of notoriously does not have the greatest defensive group. They've got some names there for sure. But they're not as high end as like US or Canada or even Sweden, right? So Paul, what do you think? Does Artem Zub make the Olympic roster on defense?
Yeah, I think he makes it. But to your point, Jacob, about him or the Russians not having a high-end defense core, we consider Zub a defensively oriented defenseman, but by
Yeah.
Russian standards, if you look at his stats, he's actually an offensive powerhouse back there.
Yeah.
So yeah. So, but I definitely think, yeah, he'll be in the lineup for the Russians or
Yeah.
what is it? The Olympic athletes of Russia,
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Yeah. Or yeah. There's
Right.
uh there's not a ton of competition for him on the right side. Now, again, at the Olympics, like we talked about with the wingers, they're just kind of the six best defensemen are gonna play. They don't really care about the sides as much as you do for 82 games in the NHL. But like on the right side, who's there? Orlov can play the right side. Is there another defenseman that's that high end? A right-handed defenseman that's that high end in the NHL?
Not off the top of my head.
No.
Unless Pavel Mintyukov, is
Oh,
he
Minchukov.
Mintyukov, is he right-handed?
He's left-handed.
He's a lefty. Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah. Um, I believe he's left-handed. I'm just fact checking that. Um, yes, he's left-handed. But yeah, like there's some guys that like there's a lot of prospects that could make their way into that, but there's not a lot of high-end guys. Like the left side, you got Sergachev, Romanov, Provorov, um, maybe a couple more, but I think Zub is the lock for making that. Dayton, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he was on the 2018 roster that won gold.
Yeah.
He is a very reliable defenseman. And as we've seen in Ottawa, he's definitely one of those guys who you can trust to not make too many mistakes. So yeah, I don't see anything that would prevent him from making the Russian team in 2026, hockey-wise.
So I just brought up active Russian NHL defenseman career stats. Where does Artem Zub rank in terms of points? Where do you think?
Career stats, you said?
Yeah, of active players.
Let's go 10th.
Okay, and this is just defensemen. Sorry, there's a lot of forwards that would have way more than him. Paul, what do you think?
Yeah. Wild guess, fifth or sixth.
He's eighth.
Eighth.
And he's creeping up on Vladislav Gavrikov, who we kind of forgot to mention there. Nikita Zaitsev has almost twice as many points as Artem Zub. Nikita Zadorov, who we forgot about, Dmitry Kulikov, Ivan Provorov, Mikhail Sergachev, and Dmitry Orlov. So, not a ton of guys that are really challenging him for that spot. Scroll down the list and like Pavel Menchikov, who you mentioned, Shakir Mukhamadullin, he might work his way into that conversation by 2 years from now. Ilya Lyubushkin, like the defense just isn't great in Russia. So
No, it's not.
I don't know. Although I will say, looking outside the NHL, Alexander Nikishin is absolutely going to be on the roster. I don't know if you two are familiar with him. Carolina Hurricane prospect. He is putting like historical numbers up in the KHL as a defenseman. So I think just last night he set a record of being the first defenseman in KHL history to record back-to-back 50-point seasons. So he's definitely going to be on the roster.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna move on. Talk about the trade deadline. So talked a little bit about it last week and even a little bit the week before. We talked about who we think that Ottawa should be kind of shipping out, what kind of trades you'd like to see, but we didn't really talk too many specific names. So we talked a little bit about Chris Tanev, right? And that was a pretty good conversation. We were kind of overselling what we thought he was worth, and it turns out that the reported asking price is a second-round pick. If Ottawa can get him for a second-round pick without an extension, do you do it? Start with you, Paul.
For a second-round pick without an extension, I guess my question would be, why? Unless it's to achieve some sort of moral victory. I saw it to Chuck talking about the other day about clawing the Senators clawing their way into playoff contention. I guess if that's your goal, but it seems to me it would be a waste of a perfectly good second-round pick on a guy that's not going to benefit the team long term.
I agree. I will say that it is a lot better spent than a second-round pick for Derek Stepan. So that's an improvement, at least, if that's where Ottawa goes. Gave up Josh Stone for Patrick Stepan. Dayton, what do you think? You think Ottawa should pull the trigger on a second-round pick for an unextended Chris Tanev?
Short answer, yes. I think that is a very reasonable price for a very reliable top four right-handed defenseman.
Yeah.
The problems come from the cap situation, and you have to move money to get him in.
Yeah.
I think it's possible. You need to move probably Brandstrom. Like if you're getting Tanev, Brandstrom is gone.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fair swap, but then that's also another $4 million that you got to find, right? I think he's a $6 million defenseman. As for a second-round pick, that is a player who will affect the team in 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
Conservative estimate, I would say.
Yeah.
They might make the team before that, but they're not going to affect it before that.
That's fair.
The Senators are basically running out of contracts by that point.
Yeah.
Right? I think that would basically come up to the end or close to of Brady, Tim Stützle, Thomas Chabot, Josh Norris is close in there. And Jake Sanderson will have 3 years left.
Yeah.
That's not when you should be adding rookies.
Yeah.
So sure, it's not great that he's not extended, and a second round pick could be someone very good, but it also could be Ben Rogers. And not to throw him under the bus, but he is not playing top hockey anymore. And he was a second round pick.
Well, and Ottawa gave up his rights. They didn't sign
exactly.
him.
I think last I saw he was playing Canadian university hockey, which is essentially saying you're not making the NHL.
Unless you're Logan Thompson.
But how many of Logan Thompsons are there?
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, it's a risk, but it all is. And I think ending the season with somebody who can help change the mentality of this team, who knows how to win, or at least potentially knows how to win.
Yeah.
And shows them, okay, this is reliable defense. And, can kind of mentor some of the guys, like maybe Bernard Docker, who becomes a Chris Tanev type guy, or Tyler Clevin, or Maxence Gwinnett, who should be playing on the team this year. But they can't because there's no room.
Yeah. I'll give a quick shout out to the Last Word on Sens podcast. He invited me on this week, and the question that I pitched to you last week was, would you rather have a 5th overall pick, or would you have a legitimate run at the playoffs? And I got into that. I got into a little bit of an argument on Twitter with him about that and just kind of staying my side of it's time to develop a winning culture. And he was like, well, what happened last year? Did we develop much of a winning culture for this year? And I guess I said no. And so we got into it a little bit. And he's like, just come on the podcast and let's talk about it. So I did. And we had some great conversation about it. And I came out of that feeling the exact same way that I do now and did before. And that's that acquiring Chris Tanev to help develop the culture is a bright idea and should be a priority for the Ottawa Senators. And maybe it's not Chris Tanev, but somebody that helps get this team somewhere that knows how to win. And Chris Tanev is the most winningest defenseman in the NHL, but he's been around the NHL. He knows what it takes to do work in the playoffs.
So do you really think that you can sign him long term? I mean, okay, he's in for a couple of months and then he's gone in the off season. I mean, what are the chances of signing him? Ottawa's a really hard sell for a guy like Tanev.
Claude Giroux's got to put in some good work there. That's all I got to say.
Even
It's going to be up to Claude Giroux.
Even bringing him in for like 2 years.
Yeah. Oh, like, that's all I would want too, is two, maybe
1 year,
years.
2 years, just like a short-term extension.
Yeah.
Help solidify that very porous defense still. I think that would be really nice.
Yeah.
Second round pick? That's
yeah. And these players are at a premium. Like solidly defensive right-handed defensemen.
Yeah.
They don't grow on trees.
You can't do that one.
I got another name for you. Arthur Kaliyev out of LA. Is that somebody the Ottawa Senators should be targeting, Paul?
So I don't know him that well. He looks good on paper, 6'2", 190 pounds, left winger, young, but the knock on him, according to the scouting reports, are he's inconsistent, a weak skater, got a great one-time shot. You know, he's a good one-timer, weak defender. He's only got about an 894 cap hit, but you know, I guess my question would be, you know, why, especially when I consider what Staios says that he's looking for, and that's to add a veteran that can help the culture of the team. I just don't know where a guy like that would fit. Maybe he's got potential. I just don't know enough about him. But when I look at the overall strategy that Staios has laid out, I just question why.
Yeah, it doesn't line up too well with what Staios kind of pitched to everybody. But I look at Velarde as somebody I look at Kaliyev as somebody like Gabe Velarde, who just wasn't getting the ice time in LA and wasn't given the opportunity to really be as effective as he could be. He was taking the pick right after Shane Pinto. A lot of people were upset that Ottawa went with Shane Pinto instead of Arthur Kaliyev. He looked like a fantastic prospect who fell through the draft rankings. And for the past 2 seasons, he's put up 30 points, give or take a couple. And I think that if he gets an opportunity in Ottawa, like if LA's buying and they do a Tarasenko for Kaliyev, that's absolutely something I'd be all over. But if you can acquire Kaliyev kind of buying low on him because he has requested a trade, then I think that that's a really good opportunity for Ottawa to kind of snag and improve the roster. What do you think, Dayton?
Who's he replacing? Like which spot is he taking?
You can bump Matthew Joseph down the lineup a little bit. You can Kubalik out of the lineup. Vlad Tarasenko if he's gone.
Yeah, is he taking over Tarasenko's second line spot or third line spot?
I don't know.
I don't know if I love that. I think I'd rather have Tarasenko.
Yeah,
for a reasonable
I would too.
cap hit. Like I have nothing against Kaliyev. I think he's a really talented player, and I was also one of those people who thought Senators probably should have taken Kaliyev instead of Pinto.
Yeah.
I don't see a fit for him on this team. He doesn't bring anything new anyways, right?
Yeah.
The Senators have wingers, pretty good wingers, maybe not the greatest depth of wingers, but when you're going to put him on the third line, that's just what he's doing in LA. And he'll put up 30 points for you. I don't know. I don't think he's worth it.
Fair. I don't know. I just really like Kaliyev, and I think that he would fit on this roster because it's kind of like this Ottawa roster is kind of the unsung heroes, right? Like you look at Shane Pinto, nobody wanted him over Arthur Kaliyev. Brady Tkachuk, everybody wanted Philip Zadina. Everybody was mad when Ottawa drafted Jake Sanderson instead of Jamie Drysdale. right? And these guys are all just kind of proving themselves here. And I just feel like that's the whole vibe around the team. And now I know there's not magic pixie dust all over Ottawa, but I don't know. I just think that Kaliyev could do something pretty special here.
See, I'd be more interested in Alex Turcotte,
That's
who's
true.
also rumored to be available.
Yeah.
Or potentially, exploring trade options.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have much of a fit in LA, and maybe looking at switching him for Norris.
I think LA would have to add a lot.
Yeah, maybe. That cap hit really sucks, though.
It does.
Yeah. I think it might be a more even trade than you'd want to admit.
Yes, the LA Kings might be a decent kind of match with the Ottawa Senators to make a move. It looks like we're not in agreement with where that move kind of goes, but and again, if you want to get back into the Jacob Chikrin conversation, LA might be interested in him. They were very interested last summer. They made a pretty good pitch, and if I remember correctly, a deal was pretty much done for him to go to LA. So I don't know what happened there. Ended up in Ottawa. Now he might be on the move again. I don't know, but maybe LA and Ottawa could be a pretty good match to make a deal. We're going to move on to another team that picked in the top three of the 2020 draft, and that's the New York Rangers. Kaapo Kakko is available. Is that somebody that you think Ottawa should be after? Or like, do you think that his presence is needed on the Ottawa roster? We'll start with you on this one, Paul.
I question the value of that one. He cost 2.4 million. If I look at him last year, he got 40 points, put up 18 goals. But when I look at comparables, and there's one right on his own team, and that's Alex Lafreniere. Lafreniere this year, he's played 50 games. He's got 13 goals and 17 assists. So I'm not sure the value would be there for him. And I guess, I think Dayton raised an interesting point with respect to Kaliyev is, okay, where does he slot? What are you trying to do with him? That would be the thing.
I would think that if Ottawa's getting somebody like Kaapo Kakko, it's going to be for Vlad Tarasenko 50% retained. So it's money in, money out. They get the better player right now. They get Tarasenko back, who they obviously wanted last year. And it's all the same management, different coach. See how things go like that. But yeah, I think that's the kind of move that they'd be wanting to make. I don't know the exact framework. I don't know where the value's at. Like, I don't know what Kaapo Kakko's worth this year. He's obviously a draft bust considering he was the second overall pick, but he's still like a really good third line player, really good on the defensive side. He's physical. He can play the penalty kill. He's somebody that I think would really help Ottawa. What do you think, Dayton?
I'd be careful calling him a draft bust already. I think this kid has some real potential to be sort of a big power forward. And bigger forwards take longer. And it's a thing that I think a lot of fans don't consider. Of course, there's Tage Thompson, but before him, like Valeri Nichushkin was written off completely.
Yeah.
Until all of a sudden, oh, this guy's a 70-point guy or whatever. I can't remember exactly what he put up, 60, 70 points. Well, yeah, he always had the skill.
Yeah.
He just needed to kind of grow into that physicality so that he could really dominate again. I think Kakko's on that trajectory.
Yeah.
And having him replace someone like Tarasenko would be such a good fit, I think.
Yeah.
So whereas Kaliyev, I'm not 100% sold on. I don't think he has that snarl that you want for a Senators team.
Yeah.
I think Kakko could really grow into that role. And there is a reason he was second overall behind Jack Hughes in 2019. If there's an opportunity to flip Tarasenko for Kakko with 50% retained, I would accept and hang up the phone so they couldn't change their mind.
Yeah. I agree.
That would be a steal.
I agree. And I don't think he's a draft bust. To this date, he hasn't lived up to second overall hype. No. And the general consensus is that right now he's a draft bust. Career high 40 points, and he's already 23 years old, I believe. So
he's 22, actually.
Is he still 22? Okay. Yeah. But still, like, by this point you're developing into what you are, but you make a great point about him being that bigger power forward. And he can do all these things. That's why he went second overall. Let's see him do it in the NHL. He's only got 6 points in 30 games this year. So bit concerning there. Opportunity is also an issue for him. Same as it was for Lafreniere. It's just kind of New York didn't do a very traditional rebuild, and it's kind of stunting their prospects. So I don't know. Like you look at the mini rebuild um that the Rangers did, and none of those players are really helping them on today's roster. Like Lafreniere is finally coming into his own and putting up good totals, but like he's not one of their top dependable, reliable guys that they always look for the production. So yeah, if Ottawa can get Kakko, I think that would be a huge success.
Yeah. But I will point out, I think it was 2 shows ago we were talking about possible acquisitions at the trade deadline, and names like Anthony Duclair came up, Sean Walker, Rasmus Ristolainen, and I
Yeah.
know Walker and Ristolainen, they're 2 right defensemen.
Yeah.
I'd like them more than I'd like Tanev, but and then the other question, I think, just out of pure curiosity on my part, is
Yeah.
what about goaltending? What if something came up at the trade deadline there? Is it possible? What would the Senators do?
If you can get UC Saros, like there's rumors that like yeah, he's not available, but like for the right price he's available. If you can get UC Saros, 100%. If what you're getting is like Kaapo Kakkonen or like a Vitek Vanacek if they need to move out a goalie or Mackenzie Blackwood, like the only reason I think Ottawa should be buying any of these goaltenders is if they are a consensus top 10 goaltender in the NHL. They don't come around easily. You should always be trying to get one. Like if I don't know, Saros is the only one. Saros is the only one that I would be really convinced that would make an impact on this Ottawa roster.
Another Finn
Another
who
Finn.
who with Korpisalo could be between the pipes for the Finns, backstopping them in 2026. I think
Yeah,
we sold Korpisalo a little short there on the previous segment. Didn't
right. We
mention.
did we did forget about him. Yeah, but we kind of talked about this in our group chat a little bit. There's a lot of people in contention for that, but Forsberg should 100% be in there. For Sweden and for Finland. Yeah, Korpisalo, he'd be in that conversation too.
Yeah. Well,
I
I guess
there's better guys.
What was
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Well, I think there's better guys. I would consider Levi Merilainen before Korpisalo if we're talking
Ooh.
Olympics.
Oh,
I don't think I'd go that far yet, but I don't think that's far off.
2
Well,
years.
you know what? With how good that Mierlainen was while he was in Sweden or Finland, sorry, you might be right. I never thought of that, but now that you just kind of sparked that, I think you might be right on that.
And Forsberg has to compete with the likes of Jesper Wallstedt.
Yeah.
Like he's not. I don't think he would get above him.
No. Philip
uh,
Gustafsson.
Ooh, yeah, that's not happening.
No.
Right. So already Forsberg is at most third string. And I think there's better Swedish goalies around than Forsberg at
Yeah.
this time.
Yeah.
So in my article, I didn't include either of those because I don't think they have very good chances. They could.
Yeah.
Not writing them off, but I think they're more long shots than more interesting options.
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think Sweden, they go with Markstrom and
Markstrom.
Allmark.
Yeah,
Allmark.
two other ones.
Yeah.
Finland
Yeah.
has Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
Yeah. There's just a lot of really good goalies all around the league. And yeah. I mean, nobody's going to top Russia in their goaltending factory with Shesterkin, Sorokin, Vasilevsky, Yaroslav Askarov, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody's topping that. So, yeah. Is there anybody else for like trade talks that you guys wanted to bring up or?
No, I think we've covered it between the conversation a couple weeks ago and tonight. With the goalies, at the trade deadline, I guess the question I'd have, and I was saying this to, I forget who I was talking to today, but is goaltending something that at this stage in their progress towards the Stanley Cup, is goaltending at this point anyway something Ottawa really needs to do anything about? If they can get some half decent goaltending for the next couple of years,
Yeah.
that's probably good enough.
Yeah, but I look at the past 3 years of Forsberg and Korpisalo, and they are half decent goaltenders. Right. So unless you're swinging for the fences and getting UC Saros, I don't think bringing anybody in is going to solve the problem that is in Ottawa. I don't think that personnel is the issue. Yes, their play this year is the issue, but I don't think that Jonas Korpisalo and Anton Forsberg are the issue for Ottawa. So unless you're swinging for the fences, I say no.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree.
Okay. All right. Well, that's going to wrap things up for today. Thank you all for coming to listen and hope you enjoyed. We'll see you next week. We're going to be missing Paul next week, so we're going to see if we can line somebody up in his absence. But if not, me and Dayton are going to talk. I don't know what we're going to talk about yet. We're just talking about not a lot of hockey between now and then for Ottawa.
Trivia and hockey history.
Trivia and hockey history. I can do that. Yeah, that sounds good. Maybe we'll have a bit of a fun trivia episode next week. We'll see how things go. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.